Welcome to the Jaron Jarvis channel. I am Jaron Jarvis. Today, I would like to introduce to you, The Replacement, Leave the Lights On, Part 1. The bright, sunny day that I'd selected as the start of my new life was almost my last day on Earth. It was my second straight day on the road, a clear, hot August afternoon in South Carolina. Traffic on I-95 was light, even for a Wednesday. The town that was going to be my home for the next couple of years was only 50 miles away, so I told Siri to turn off my music and started scanning local stations. One DJ with a bit more South in his mouth than usual caught my attention. It's only gonna get hotter, no doubt about her, and remember, you heard it right here on 99.7, the Shug. Which I later learned is spelled the Shug, local slang for my destination, Sugartree. A little acoustic guitar riff accompanied the station ID. The DJ drawled on, drivers headed south on I-95 near the Route 57 exit to Dillon. Be advised there's an accident you really want to slow down for. Seriously, folks, you'll want to slow down and have a good, close look at this one. That's weird, I remember thinking. I'd never heard a traffic report quite like that before. I shrugged. Must be a southern thing. I'd just seen a sign for Dillon and was approaching a curve in the highway, so I took the man's advice. I slowed down and got into the middle lane. When I saw smoke ahead on the right shoulder, I slowed even more. Cars whizzed past on my left, but I mostly had eyes for the semi-truck lying on its side just off the road. Flames were visible in its cab, and there was a small car pinned between its grille and the crumpled guardrail. As I approached the wreck, I saw a person in the car. An old man. His white hair was sticking out in all directions and he was grinning right at me like he'd won the lottery. Before I could react, a big Mercedes SUV cut across my path from the left and smashed into the old man's car. There was no room to stop. I didn't know what I could have done if I had stopped. I was hyperventilating, my brain switching back and forth between the poor old man and I might be dead if I hadn't slowed down. Horns sounded and headlights flashed behind me. I realized I was still only going about 25 miles per hour. I sped back up, but took the next exit and went the rest of the way on smaller roads. I still felt a little shaky when I got to Sugartree. I had planned to just check into my motel and wait for the university dorms to open for check-in in the morning, but I didn't want to be alone just then. I didn't know anybody in town, so I found two coffee shops near campus, Buzz Factory and Finds and Grinds. Buzz Factory's sign was a massive, shiny red diner-style coffee cup with thick, black vibration marks all around it. Bright light blazed out of the windows from the stark, black and white interior, and everyone standing outside was wearing black and looked angry. The whole block smelled like burned waffles. I decided to keep driving. Finds and Grinds turned out to be a coffee shop that shared a building with an antiques mall. It had wood floors, mellow lighting, and quiet jazz music playing on the speakers. Not my favorite, but at least it was real jazz, like Louis Armstrong, not Kenny G. The older guy at the counter was pleasant and didn't try to sell me a logo mug. The mismatched comfy chairs were already taken, so I settled at a hand-painted two-top by the storefront window. South Carolina International U was going to be my home for what I hoped would be a short 2 years while I finished my degree in marine science and ecotoxicology. I wouldn't have time or energy to spare on local happenings, but the accident I'd witnessed really bothered me. I got my phone out and started searching. One local news feed had a listing that was barely more than a headline: 3-vehicle accident on I-95 south north of Dillon, semi-trailer and 2 passenger vehicles involved, 2 fatalities confirmed. That was it. I looked for the radio station I'd been listening to. There was no 99.7 anywhere in the area. The only Sugartree station was University Radio, way down the dial. I found 2 stations that used the Shug in their announcements. One was gospel and soul, definitely not what I'd been listening to, and the other was supposed to be some kind of pirate pop-up station that only got talked about in Radiohead discussion forums. I thought that had to be it, and bookmarked some pages to come back to. I brought my cup back to the counter. That was pretty good, I told the guy. It was actually the best ginger latte I'd ever had in my life. What do you do that's so different? He smiled and draped a hand towel over his shoulder. Trade secret. If you want to learn, I'm hiring. It was tempting. I was really stretching my scholarship money with the 1 meal a day plan as it was. I'd told myself I wasn't going to work while taking classes this time. That was good. On the other hand, it was going to mean a lot of ramen noodles. I was conflicted. Let me think about it, I said as I started to go. Okay, he replied. My name's Nathan and I own the place, ask for me pretty much any time. My craving for caffeine and company satisfied, I drove to the Red Crab Motel. It was the kind with interior hallways, not outside room doors. Those had always creeped me out. After that night, though, I'm never going back to either kind. The desk clerk's name tag said Raymond. He seemed nervous while he was checking me in, and as I headed for the elevator, he called, Oh, Miss Belinda, I'm sorry, the elevator's out. I turned around, was he talking to me? My name's Amy, I said. It's on the ID I just showed you? He looked flustered. Yes, I'm sorry Miss Amy, I was just thinking of that name, I guess. I'm sorry, the elevator's out, so you'll have to take the stairs. And some of the hallway lights are out, too. We had some rain and the wires, you know, we need to get those bulbs replaced. I just nodded and waited for him to wind down, then thanked him and headed for the stairs. They looked well lit, but I fumbled my little heavy-duty, brushed stainless flashlight out of my backpack just to be holding something. In the upstairs hallway, only about half of the lights were working. It was silent, and the air up there was warm and humid. The carpet was old and worn, and there was an unpleasant, moldy smell. I thought about turning around right then and, go to another crappy motel I could barely afford. It was just one night, I told myself I could deal with anything for one night. I kept walking toward my room, number 219. I heard the muted sound of a TV laugh track behind one room door. See, it's just a normal place, I told myself. I caught a smell like the ocean around the door to 209. They must be big-time surfers. Soft tapping and scratching sounds came from the door to 212. From right at the door itself, like there was someone standing just behind it, scratching and tapping a tuneless beat on the wood while watching through the peephole. I instinctively moved to the other side of the hallway, and just as I did so, the nearest light fixture flickered out. Startled, I hurried toward the next working light. A hard bang sounded from the door to 216, and a man started shouting, Hey! What's the deal now? Hey! Hey! What's the deal now? What's the deal now? That was too much. I was close to the end of the hallway, and I could see the metal bar of a stairway fire door on the right-hand side. I ran for it, but instead of opening, the bar stayed firmly in place and I bounced back so hard that I almost fell. A handwritten sign taped to the door read, Sorry, out of order, with a frowny face. How can a fire door be out of order? I looked toward the window, or what I thought was a window, beside me at the end of the hallway. The sun had still been up when I checked in, but the glass was black. Nothing was visible outside. My pale face and two dim lights were reflected in its dusty surface. I wheeled around. Only the two hallway lights closest to me were shining, now. One of them flickered. Beyond the reach of their hazy, yellow glow, the close little hallway was completely dark. Another loud bang rang out from the unseen door, and I heard the man yell again, What's the deal now? There was a raw edge to the scream. The tapping, scratching sound came, and the flickering light went out for good. I hammered on the fire door and hurled myself against the black window. Neither had any effect. What? Bang is the deal. Crash now. The last remaining light flickered. I could only think of one thing. The key was still in my hand, it was the old-fashioned metal kind. The door to 219 was directly across from the fire door. I hesitated. Bang! Flicker. I thrust the key into the lock, turned it, wrenched the handle, and shoved myself against the door. It opened so easily that I staggered through and fell at the foot of the bed. A light was on inside the room. The door hit the wall so hard that it bounced back and slammed shut. A man was standing by the bed. He was dressed in an old-fashioned brown suit. His white hair stuck out in all directions and he was grinning wide-eyed at me. He cried out, "Belinda." I tried to scramble backwards, away from him, and smashed my head on a heavy piece of furniture. The man let out a high-pitched giggle and threw a white sheet over me. It was heavy and reeked of salt water. My head was spinning and I almost gagged from the smell before I tore it away from my face. I felt lace and pearls in my hand. The material was silky and heavily embroidered. I screamed and pushed it off while the man cackled. It was a wedding dress. "Some music for us, cara mia," he said gleefully, and pressed a button on the room's clock radio. When I saw the back of the dress, I screamed again in revulsion. The material hung in shreds, stained red and spattered with chunks of decaying flesh. Between my own shrieks, I could hear a radio announcer's bland drawl, "A little something old and something new, as they say, gentlefolk, lend your lobes to this twist on a classic performed by Sugartree's own John Majors Duncan." An acoustic guitar rang out a couple bars of an old tune, which segued into a man singing an even older song. She came in through the bathroom window. Protected by a silver spoon. The man careened toward me, his high laughter drowning out the music. Bathroom window. I gathered my strength as the man leapt, arms wide open. I twisted to the side, rolling onto the abominable wedding dress and striking out at him with my flashlight. I don't know if he even felt my blow, but instead of grabbing me, he fell against the same heavy dresser that had almost knocked me out. I jammed my feet into his side to push myself away and roll into a crouch. The man made a gurgling sound and reached out, fast, but not fast enough. I stumbled into the grimy little bathroom and slammed the door. The light switch didn't work, but a dim glow filtered through the frosted glass window. The latch was stuck. The man banged on the door. I smashed the glass with my flashlight and cleared the edges as well as I could while trying to hold the door shut. I could hear him shouting, "Belinda. Cara mia. Come out, or I'm coming in." I braced one foot against the putrid, overflowed toilet and sprang at the window. A sudden, deep pain rocketed through my left arm, but I didn't stop. I kept struggling to pull myself through the narrow frame and on, up the rocky, moonlit slope. A final, wailing cry, "My Belinda," followed me as I rolled myself out into the night air. I didn't pass out, but I felt weak and dizzy. Something was bothering me. I tried to concentrate. I had climbed upward, out of a second-floor window. I looked around. I was lying on a sidewalk at the edge of a cracked asphalt parking lot, deserted except for my old Ford Focus. On the other side, behind me, a heap of brick and concrete rubble hulked in the moonlight beneath the rusty spire of an empty sign. I had no idea what had just happened. I did know that my heart was racing and I was losing blood from my left forearm at an alarming rate. I staggered toward my car. All that was going through my mind was, how can I afford to go to the hospital? And, where even is the hospital? And, at least it should be a decent place to spend the night.